I woke up abruptly the next morning at around 5 a.m. I shivered, despite being covered in sweat. I pressed a hand on my chest in an attempt to slow down my rapidly beating heart, as I wondered why I had woken up that way. Once I finally calmed down, I sat in bed for a few minutes to catch my breath. My gut told me that something was terribly wrong, though I wasn't sure what. Maybe it was just the long shift and the alcohol getting to me. Restless, I finally got out of bed and made my way to the bathroom. I turned on the tap and generously wiped my face and chest with cold water. After I took a couple of deep breaths, I looked up at my hazy reflection. My eyes were bloodshot from the alcohol combined with the lack of sleep. My hair was sticking up all over the place, and sweat was slowly dripping down my chest. I figured that I wouldn't have been able to go back to sleep, so I stripped off my remaining clothes and took a shower. The cold water automatically woke me up even more. Once I was done, I felt refreshed. Satisfied, I turned off the water and stepped out to dry myself. Once that was done, I wrapped the towel around my waist and walked to the mirror. I wiped away the condensation and proceeded to shave my growing beard. For the next 10 minutes, I continued on with my hygiene care before I left the bathroom. I shivered slightly at the drop in temperature when I entered my rather large bedroom. The accommodations were quite generous with us. I dropped my towel to the tiled floor and put on a simple pair of dark jeans and a tight black t-shirt. Once I was dressed, I fell down onto my bed and stared at the ceiling blankly. Now what? I asked myself. After a couple minutes of pointless staring, I got up again, and a thought came to my mind. Rachel's probably back home by now. Maybe I should call her. I walked over to the phone and dialed the general number for Seeker HQ. They would be able to connect me directly to Rachel, wherever she was. The phone rang continuously, but then it had the noise that suggested that the line was not connected before the ringing stopped altogether. Puzzled, I hung up and tried again. The same thing happened, although that time, the ringing didn't go on for as long. Confused, I hung up for good and stared at the phone. What was that all about? I wondered. I shrugged as I thought it would be just a mechanical issue. However, my insides twisted uncomfortably. I decided to go try Fear's phone. I left my quarters and went next door to where Fear was staying. I pressed the doorbell and waited. I heard shuffling from the other side of the door, as well as a thud sound followed by someone swearing. I bit my lip to prevent myself from laughing. Alas, Fear in all his half-naked glory opened the door, and glared once he realized that it was me.
"What the hell do you want at this time?"
he asked roughly. I shrugged carelessly. I couldn't sleep. Thought that I might as well use my time wisely to come bother you. Fear's glare got more intense.
"Yeah? Well, in case you hadn't noticed, some of us actually sleep at this hour. So fuck off."
He was about to close the door when I pressed my foot against it. Now, sunshine, don't be like that," I teased. One of Fear's eyebrows twitched at my use of the nickname, but then proceeded to glare at me once more.
"What do you want?"
he asked again. That time, I decided to get straight to the point. I tried to call Rachel, but for some reason the line with Seeker HQ never went through. I wanted to use your phone to see if it'll make any difference. For a moment, Fear contemplated on my favor, before he grumbled and opened the door wider to let me through. I stepped in, and immediately Fear closed the door.
"So, you woke me up at almost 6 a.m. just so you could call your girlfriend?"
he stated. I shoved my hands into my jeans pockets and looked around his quarters lazily. Yeah, well, my girlfriend also happens to be your friend, too. Wouldn't you like to hear from her? See how she's doing? Fear gave me a "what do you think" look.
"Sure, I guess, but not at this hour. What's wrong with you?"
Fear stared at me intensely, and I stared back. After a moment, I gave in and sighed. I don't know, Fear. Ever since we started this mission, I kept getting the feeling that something bad is going to happen. I just want to know that Rachel is all right." Fear was quiet as he took in what I said. He then brought out his cell phone and threw it to me. I caught it effortlessly.
"Just dial 1. It'll connect you automatically to Seeker HQ,"
he said before he went to his bed and rested on it. I nodded to him in thanks and did exactly what he said. The ringing came again, so I decided to pass the time. "So, how was your date?" I asked. "Did you two finally test your strengths in sparring?" I grinned at the last part.
"Ha.
Fear replied dryly.
I prefer to get to know a girl before I sleep with her."
How noble of you," I commented. Fear was about to retort when the line went through. I held a hand up to silence him. What happened next, though, amazed me.
"Thank you for calling Seeker Headquarters. Unfortunately, no one is available to take your call. In fact, no one ever will be."
Came the recorded message, followed by some laughter. Gunshots also rang in the background as people screamed. I held the phone in front of me and stared at it in confusion. Fear noticed my reaction and gave me a questioning look. I passed him the phone, and he held it to his ear. He too stared at the phone in confusion after he heard the message.
"What the hell was that all about?"
he questioned. I shook my head as I had no idea what happened. Suddenly, an explosion erupted, which caused the windows in the quarters to shatter. Fear and I took cover under his bed and waited until the initial rumbling faded away. Various sirens immediately went off. The once peaceful quiet was dominated by loud, chaotic noises. I grunted as I pulled myself from under the bed. Fear swore as he accidentally cut himself on a glass shard and held the wound with his other hand.
"Ah, fuck."
I coughed a bit as dust particles flew freely in the air. I carefully walked towards the shattered windows and looked down. I was met by the sight of numerous fires occurring on several levels, the nearest one just 3 levels below us. I coughed harder as I accidentally breathed in some of the smoke, so I turned away before I could inhale more. By that time, Fear wrapped his cut in thick bandages and was fully dressed in a pair of jeans a shade or so lighter than my own, and a simple gray shirt.
"What the hell just happened?"
he blurted out. "I have no idea," I replied back honestly. "One thing's for sure, we've got to get out of here." The assassin nodded. The sirens got louder, and a synthetic voice spoke over the intercoms.
"This is a Class 4 emergency. All Seeker agents, please report to the main hall,"
the voice announced. Fear and I both glanced at each other and nodded. Fear quickly took out a black case from under his bed. He placed it on top and opened it to reveal his signature swords. He wrapped a leather belt around his waist and slid the swords through their respective harnesses. Fear looked up and noticed my puzzled look.
"Hey, I'm a first-time father. I don't leave my babies behind,"
he joked. I rolled my eyes, but quickly went straight to business. "Let's go," I stated. He nodded, and we made our way out the door. There were several pieces of glass and various materials scattered about, so we had to carefully step over them. A couple of fellow Seeker agents literally ran out in their pajamas towards the fire escape. Fear and I decided to follow them. We went down the steps 3 at a time to quicken the pace. We went down about 15 levels and went out the door. Once on the other side, we were met by the sight of fires burning all over, and the ground was littered with glass and other materials. My nostrils flared in irritation from the smoke and the heat. "Where is everyone?" I asked before I let out a cough.
"Hell if I know."
Fear replied hoarsely.
"This is where we're supposed to be. Something must have happened."
As if on cue, Gunshots sprang all around us. A couple of them nearly grazed us. We quickly fell into cover and assessed our situation. Okay, I started. An explosion just occurred, we've got fires everywhere, and now we're being shot at. Did I miss anything? Fear gave me an amused glance.
Yeah, I think you forgot your knives.
He teased. I huffed and punched him on the shoulder. He rubbed it, but immediately went still as a bullet skimmed past his cheek.
Holy shit!
He exclaimed.
That was close.
I gritted my teeth together as I attempted to uncover the location of the mysterious shooters. Well, I'm at a loss, I said bluntly. I don't suppose you could somehow throw your swords far enough to hit them? Fear gave me a what the hell glance.
No.
He said.
In case you didn't notice, these are swords, not boomerangs.
Thanks, Captain Obvious, I replied sarcastically. He was about to retort, but we were sprayed with more bullets. Another set of gunshots went off, however, and then it went quiet. Fear and I looked at each other before we carefully peeked out from our hiding spots as we heard footsteps. Once our heads were out of cover, we saw Agent Claire walk towards us.
Morning, gentlemen,
She said.
I don't suppose you could offer me a cup of coffee.
My friend and I looked at each other again before we fully exposed our bodies. We climbed over the rubble and walked towards Agent Claire. Thanks for saving our asses, I said. Do you know what's going on? I asked. Agent Claire took on a more serious tone.
As you noticed, there was an explosion earlier. A small bomb detonated in one of the observation towers.
She paused and looked at both of us gravely.
It's the Phantoms,
She whispered. My eyes widened and then narrowed as I took in the information. I should have known it was them. I inconspicuously took a deep breath before I spoke again. So what do we do now? The main area is on fire, and we're probably overrun by Phantom agents. Agent Claire nodded in agreement.
We have to evacuate the Shroud. I saw other secret agents doing just that. There's nothing we can do here. Before we can leave, though, you both need to get appropriate weapons.
With that, Agent Claire turned around and hastily crossed the main area. Immediately, Fear and I fell into step behind her. It turned out that she led us to the weapons storage area. She went into the back and took out 2 black cases and set them in front of us.
This one's yours,
She said as she looked at me.
and this is for you.
She said rather shyly as she addressed Fear. Fear opened the case, and his eyes widened as he stared at the content in shock.
The new Devil's Bow. How did you...
Let's just say a little bird told me.
Agent Claire replied, and winked. Fear stared at her in slight amazement before he regained his focus and set up the weapon. In the meantime, I opened up my own case and whistled at the sight of a beautiful serrated shotgun that was made of titanium. I brought it close to my face and admired the shine that the metal caught from the distant fires.
I don't mean to interrupt your personal fantasies, gentlemen, but we are running on a tight schedule.
Agent Claire said, which pulled Fear and I out of our admiration. I secured the shotgun within my grasp. I turned towards Fear and saw that he too was ready. His hands held on to the beautiful sniper rifle. We made eye contact, and then we looked back at Agent Claire and nodded. She also nodded in confirmation, and turned around and speed-walked out the door. Fear and I followed behind her. Each of us kept an eye on our 6. Agent Claire walked forwards carefully as she looked around for any enemies. A sound of a struggle caught all of our attentions, and we made our way towards the source. We came around a pile of more rubble and saw some Seeker agents battling with Phantom agents. Horrifyingly, each Seeker agent was slaughtered with no mercy. I gritted my teeth in anger as rage boiled within me. The desire to kill Phantoms itched all over. As if sensing the change in atmosphere, one of the Phantom agents turned around and looked right at us. He then signaled his buddies and gestured to us.
They've seen us!
Agent Claire cried out. Right away, Fear took a defensive position in front of the combat specialist and held out his rifle.
Come and get me, bitches,
He challenged. Phantom Agent sped towards us, yet Fear showed no sign of, well, fear. He lined the rifle's sight to face the Phantom in the middle. With a sharp breath, he pulled the trigger. It was a bullseye. It hit the Phantom right in the chest, yet the other two still kept on running. Not one to be distracted by a kill, Fear turned his attention to the agent on the right and fired again. Like the first one, that agent was also hit. However, the last one was awfully close to us. Fear would not have had enough time to take him out too. In a last-minute effort, I fired at the remaining Phantom's abdomen. He went down, gurgling, as blood flew from his mortal wound. I looked up and realized that Fear was looking at me. "What?" I asked. "Can't let you have all the fun." He gave me an indifferent look as I smiled at him sheepishly. Another explosion from above caught our attention. We all looked up and saw dozens of Phantom agents sliding down ropes and surrounded us. "Oh, crap," I commented. All three of us formed a triangle with our backs to one another. I held my shotgun at the ready. Fear had his rifle aimed at the Phantom blocking the exit, and Claire took out her dual pistols. "Hey, Fear," I started. Just so you know, it was me who stole your computer CPU. That's why it never worked." Fear glanced at me in shock.
What the hell, John?
He cried out.
Why are you telling me this now?
I huffed in exasperation. "I don't frickin' know," I shouted back. "Maybe it's because we're about to die, so I wanted to be cleared of anything that was on my conscience."
Would you guys just shut the hell up?
Agent Claire yelled, which caused both Fear and I to stop talking. We resumed our focus on the coming Phantoms. They consisted of warriors, assassins, and some other ranks that I couldn't identify. I gritted my teeth as the Phantoms continued to get closer. All of a sudden, a loud beeping noise arose, and one of the armored vans came crashing through the front glass. The three of us got down, as we covered our faces from the flying glass. The beeping noise turned out to be the van's horn, blaring to catch our attention. We realized that the Phantoms were momentarily stunned, so we seized that opportunity to run to safety. The doors automatically opened, and we quickly got inside. Immediately, the driver put the van in reverse, and as soon as we were outside, the driver hit the gas and the van sped away. Once I regained my bearings, I crawled towards the front, and finally saw who the driver was. "Pete?" I asked in surprise. "What are you doing here?" The head warrior glanced at me briefly.
"I'm here because of the Phantoms,"
he replied. He sped through the dark streets and expertly dodged any obstacles in our way. I crawled into the front passenger seat and put on my seatbelt. "Jesus Christ, Pete! What the hell's going on?" I demanded. The head warrior ignored me, too focused on driving us to safety. Fear and Claire were in the back and kept on bouncing as neither of them had their seatbelt on.
"The Phantoms attacked Seeker HQ. Seeker agents at there are either dead or have been taken hostage,"
Pete finally said as he cursed in his breath. My eyes widened at his news. "I thought they were after the shroud." The head warrior shook his head.
"No, it was all just a well-executed plan. Seeker HQ was their main target. They drew all high operative Seeker agents away from it, so they could move in. There's word that the directors are dead."
I gritted my teeth as the van hit a rather nasty-looking hole, but the head warrior still kept on driving. "Well, what does this mean for us?" I asked. My heart was beating like mad.
"It means that we're on a full-scale war. The whole world is now involved."
The head warrior replied, as he looked at me dead in the eye. I felt my blood go cold at the horrifying reality. This was exactly what Rachel feared for. "Sir, what happened to Rachel and her team?" If I hadn't been paying attention, I would have missed the nanosecond time frame in which the head warrior's body went rigid. I immediately knew that something was wrong. Pete turned his head away.
We lost contact with Agent Moore and her team shortly after they arrived in New York. We suspect that the Phantoms have captured them.
My heart skipped a beat as I took in what Pete said. "What?" I shouted. "How the hell did that happen? Where is she?" The head warrior didn't even wince. Instead, he turned sharply into a dark alley and stopped the van. He turned to look at me.
I mean that she is MIA. The only bodies we found on board the plane were those of the pilot and Agent Elvira.
The head warrior looked away. His grip on the steering wheel increased in pressure. I narrowed my eyes and snarled. "So what? The others just vanished? For God's sakes, we're the Seekers! Are we really that pathetic that we can't properly find people?" The head warrior slapped the steering wheel in frustration and whipped his head around. His eyes were wild with anger and loss.
Don't start acting like you're the only one who lost someone. Several of my friends and colleagues are dead, and I have no idea what happened to the others.
I was about to retort, but a hand gripped my shoulder. I turned around and saw Fear looking at me sadly, while Claire was at a loss.
John, not like this.
Fear said, gently. I looked at my childhood friend. He too was worried for Rachel and the others, though he was calmer about it than I was. How could I have been calm? I looked away and gripped the car seat tightly as I struggled to find my inner balance. For a moment there was a tense, awkward silence in the van, as neither of us knew what to say or do. Thankfully, Pete cleared his throat, started the van, and drove once more. The silence continued on for a bit longer, until I got tired of it. "What's our next move?" I asked, wary of not pissing off the head warrior any more than I already had. Luckily, he was a professional and went along with it.
We'll have to regroup at a secure location, gather as many surviving Seeker agents as we can, and strike back at the Phantoms. Do you remember all those medical tests you underwent when you first joined the Seekers?
Pete asked. All three of us nodded our heads.
Whether you were aware of these or not, every Seeker agent was implanted with nanobots that could be activated in case of an emergency. Frankly, now seems to be the perfect moment.
With that, he pushed the button, and suddenly all of our veins started to glow. I looked at my arms in awe, completely shocked that something like this was hidden inside of me for all of these years. I looked back at Fear and Claire, and saw that they too were looking at their bodies in curiosity about this fact. I turned my attention to the head warrior. "So where to?" I asked. He turned around and gave me a slight smirk.
To the place where you least expected.